Chapter 12. Reach. Wade and Dylan quickly assessed the situation. How stable was the small ledge they stood on? Would it hold all three of them? Wade's jaw tightened. It would have to. There was little time, the boy was tiring. He needed off that rock as fast as possible. Wade laid on the ledge and inched his way closer to Jesse, kicking up dirt as he did. Dylan sat behind him, holding onto his legs. Wade needed him, it would be quite a reach to the boy. Wade inched himself out far enough the entire top half of his sweaty body hung past the dirt-covered ledge, suspended in the air. His heart thumped against his ribs as he forced himself to stretch further and further out. The gap between Wade and Jesse almost closed. Jesse's pale face went whiter as he looked from Wade to the ground far, far below. "Don't look at that, Jesse," Wade said. "Look at me." Jesse zeroed in on Wade's face. "Good boy. Now reach out one of your hands." Jesse swung his head back and forth so aggressively Wade worried for his safety. "No. No, I can't." "You can. Don't make me, please. Don't make me." Jesse's fingers whitened on the stone as he gripped tighter. Wade's body shook with the strain of staying horizontal over the drop for so long. If he didn't get Jesse off that rock soon, he wouldn't have the strength left to do so. "Jesse, you're tougher than a hungry mountain lion. You ain't gonna let this little old mountain beat you down now, are ya?" Wade continued coaxing Jesse until the boy's hand loosened on the rock. Wade heaved his body out a little more. Behind him, Dylan uttered a loud groan and scrambled to keep them both on the ledge. Wade's heart sunk as his hands flailed in the air, the cliff too far behind to grab onto. When Dylan found his footing and steadied, Wade released a breath he hadn't known he'd been holding. "I ain't doing that again." Wade stared at Jesse. "Now, boy." Jesse's arm flew outward. Wade locked onto it. He wrapped his big hand around the boy's arm and shoulder, peeling him from the large stone. Jesse latched himself to Wade, eyes bulging with fright. Wade couldn't help but to bend downward. He put one hand against the shelf of the mountain and prayed his brother had the endurance to get through this. The entire side of Dylan's body blazed with pain. The sudden addition of Jesse's weight taxed him. His arms became knotted ripples of muscle. Jesse and Wade hovered over the edge, while Dylan struggled just to keep them there. To drag them back seemed impossible. Dylan called himself every sort of name trying to pump himself up. "It's just a man and a kid. You can do this. You got this, little brother." Dylan set his jaw, grinding his teeth. "You're gonna do this, you ain't got a choice." He planted himself and leaned back, dragging his brother with him. Dylan bellowed a string of curses along in a low groan as his world filled with red, burning pain. Inch by inch, he hauled his brother and Jesse up over the ledge. He felt the slice and pop of one, two, then several of his stitches. Blood seeped then soaked the side of Dylan's shirt. There was a gasp from sky above him. Dylan ignored it. He ignored everything except the triumph he felt with each small millimeter he moved his brother. At last, Wade was close enough he used his elbows and knees to muscle himself up. Lastly, he pulled Jesse over the ledge. Jesse ran to Dylan and clung to him as the man tousled his hair and squeezed his shoulder. Wade glanced at Dylan. "I had my doubts for a minute there." Dylan grunted. "Only a minute? I must have done better than I thought." The two brothers stared at each other before grasping each other's arms. Wade looked Dylan over. "You look like crap. Let's just get this done." They lifted Jesse onto Wade's shoulders. From there, Jesse reached up to Sky and was pulled to safety.
Trembling with relief, Sky wrapped her arms around Jesse's dirty body, holding him tight to her. Her sobs returned, but this time because of her joy. Jesse clenched Sky as they hugged and rocked, wadding her shirt in his hands as tears rolled down his face. "I'm sorry. Jesse, it wasn't your fault, it just crumbled. You're okay now. That's all that matters." Jesse stood and awkwardly scrubbed his face. I didn't mean to cry. That's what babies do. It's okay to cry, honey, Sky reassured him. I know it scared you. I was so scared. I thought I was a goner. You're safe. Sky gave Jessie another hug before peeking over the edge again. Wade knelt so Dylan could step on his shoulders. Shaking, Wade slowly rose. Dylan grabbed the lip of the cliff and pulled himself up. Not without cost though. His face twisted even though Sky did her best to help him. Once on solid ground, Dylan bent holding his side. Sky couldn't imagine the anguish this re-injury caused him. Watching his struggles as he dragged Wade and Jessie to safety had made her sick to her stomach. Dirt still caked her fingernails from gripping the grass as she had watched and wished there was a way she could help them. Sky gasped at his blood-soaked shirt. Oh, Dylan. Let's get Wade up here, then we'll look at it, Dylan grunted as he lowered himself into position to haul Wade up. I'll help. You ain't strong enough. I just helped you. There was no way Sky would let Dylan do this by himself. I can do something to help. Dylan scooted to make room for her. The two reached down but were still short of spanning the gap to Wade. Jessie, get the blanket, Sky said. Jessie ran for it. Wade looked up at them. Not sure the boy is gonna make it back with that. The ledge is feelin' shaky. Jump. Dylan ordered. Wade leaped and grabbed onto Dylan and Sky's hands as part of the ledge crumbled. The weight was far more than Sky expected. She cried out as her arms exploded in pain, first from the jerk, then as they continued to stretch beyond their normal limits. Sky? Dylan's eyes wavered between her and Wade. I can do this. Sky gritted her teeth. Even as she spoke, her half of Wade's brawny body unbalanced her, and she started to slide toward the cliff's edge. Dylan swiftly moved one hand to grip Wade's arm below Sky's hold. Jessie leaped onto Sky's back for added weight and to offer what assistance he was able. Once Sky felt secure, she glanced at Dylan. I'm good now. Are you sure? We can't lose any more ground. I ain't gonna be able to pull him up if we do. His voice broke. It's okay, Dylan. We can do this. Dylan and Sky began to worm their way backward. Jessie took hold of Wade's shirt and pulled. Once Wade was lifted high enough, he dragged himself onto solid ground. The four flopped back onto the grass, gasping. Sky was the first one up, crawling to Dylan and examining his reopened knife injury. Her face paled when she saw the blood soaking his shirt and dripping onto the green below him. Sky slowly peeled his t-shirt back to see what she already suspected. Many of his stitches were ripped. Dylan had a hollow, bloody socket in his midsection. Sky hadn't seen the injury the first time around, and it was more than she wanted to see now. She took a deep breath to steady her nerves and sent Jessie for the cloth napkins she brought to the picnic. They would help stem the stream of fresh blood. Wade knelt beside Sky and laid a hand on his brother's shoulder. Worry for Dylan covered his face.